In this reading response, you're going to do more of a summary. Your assignment is to write 3 paragraphs about what has happened so far in the book. I will show you how to compose those 3 paragraphs using all the pages you completed so far in your journal. So please take out your Button-Up Buddy journal pages from your 3-ring binder and your copy of the book. Step 1, which you already did. Read chapters 1 through 3 and complete all these charts so far to the best of your ability. Step 2, we're going to look at your reading response sheet a little bit closer. It looks like this. So far you should have filled out each of the boxes and answers to the question. Describe Bud, describe Todd, describe what happened. Then you were given another sheet of paper that says reading response on the top. It looks like this. On that sheet, that's kind of just like where you're going to start your rough draft. So if you wanted to take a minute to write down everything that happened so far so you remember. Or maybe you just want to draw a picture of Bud and kind of a diagram of all the things he's been through. Maybe you're even going to sketch his mother's suitcase or his suitcase with the things in it that reminded him of his old life to help you organize how you're going to write. So 1 page, answer the questions. On the big blank page, start pre-writing and start thinking about what you're going to write so far. Step 3, it's time to start writing. Your first paragraph is going to introduce the book. Your second paragraph is going to tell about the problem in the book. And the third paragraph, you're going to make a prediction about what will happen next. And I'm going to help you do that paragraph by paragraph. If you're going to be writing this on a sheet of paper, take out that sheet of paper right now. If you're going to be writing this on a Google Doc or something or typing it online, open that document so it's side by side with this one. You're going to have to pause this video a bunch of times so you can write and then go back to the video. That's how it's designed. So, at the beginning of paragraph 1, start on a new line and indent. You're going to write a few sentences to introduce the book and the character. In these first few sentences, you must include the following. The title of the book and underline it. The author of the book, and in the very least, you just need his last name. You need to tell me the main character's name and the setting of where this happens. And finally, you need to tell me why you think this book was chosen to be read this year by this class. There's something in this book that your teacher needs you to learn. So for paragraph 1, that's the first few sentences. Now you're not done with paragraph 1 yet. Now I need you to write a few sentences about what kind of person Bud is. You must include at least one character trait, like he's strong or friendly or kind or a liar. And you have to have at least one physical description. So maybe you're going to have a word that marks on his age or his gender or his race, his class, his general appearance. At least one word that refers to that. Then the next part of paragraph 1, I want you to write a few sentences about why your teacher chose to read this book. Maybe your teacher wanted you to learn the lesson that the author was trying to teach the children. Or maybe your teacher wants you to learn a reading skill that this book teaches really well. You need to make an inference or a prediction why your teacher wanted you to read this book. So that's all the things you need for paragraph 1. And I know it sounds like a lot, but let me show you an example of what your first paragraph can sound like. Here's another example of how your first paragraph can sound. Here comes paragraph 2. Before you start paragraph 2, you need to use a transition word. Remember, paragraph 2 is going to start on a new line and be indented. So the first few words of your second paragraph can sound like this: to begin, to summarize, it's important to know. And once you have that transition phrase or transition word, you're ready to start. The first sentence in paragraph 2 needs to describe the main characters so far. The second sentence in paragraph 2 needs to describe the relationship between Bud and some of the main characters. The third paragraph needs to explain why the relationships are that way. That's going to lead to you describing the problem. When you are describing the relationships between the characters, I need your fourth sentence to copy a sentence straight from the book and tell the page number. And then your fifth sentence is going to explain why you chose to copy that specific sentence, what that sentence means for the whole book. And then finally, your sixth sentence is going to connect back to the whole story. Your seventh sentence will tell the main problem in the story. And then your eighth sentence will tell some minor problems in the story. Now, listen carefully. I'm not saying you have to write these sentences in that order. That's kind of where editing comes in. But you need at least one sentence to describe the main character. You need at least one sentence that tells the main problem. And then in the editing process, you can put the sentences in different orders. So let me show you an example of what that second paragraph should sound like. Read this paragraph to yourself, and you'll have an example. You see how I left some blank lines for you to finish the sentences yourself? And if you see where I wrote, quote the book, I put some brackets there so you can actually copy the lines straight from the book for textual evidence. Here's another example of what your second paragraph can sound like. Now, here at SVA, we greatly value gifted education. We think that every child should be treated as if they are a gifted child and has new original thoughts to share. Just as a reminder, I'm going to go over some of the icons in case you wanted to include some of those icons in your paragraphs about Bud. Maybe you're going to write one sentence about what the big idea is in the book, and you're going to follow up with a few sentences that go over the details. Sure, that's a great way to start. If you would like to try some more advanced ways of thinking, you can give me a sentence or two on what is Bud's motivation, or maybe a few sentences on what Mrs. Amos's motivation is. Because here's the truth about life. Nobody thinks they're a bad guy. Miss Amos honestly thinks she's doing a good thing. So what is Miss Amos's motivation? Maybe you could write a sentence or two about that. And now there's some other icons here that maybe some of you haven't seen before. This one here is the impact icon. Maybe you can write a few sentences on how Bud's kindness impacts the story. Or maybe you can write a few sentences on how Miss Amos's cruelty impacts Bud's perspective. Impact just means how one thing causes another thing to change. This one here is called contribution. It means how many things come together to lead to something else. So I could think of many things the Amoses did that contributed to Bud's running away. If you would like to write your paragraph about what things contributed to Bud's running away and escaping from the shed, that would make a great second paragraph. But there's also this last icon here. This last icon is parallel. And there are some very interesting parallels that are happening in this story. If you would like to write your second paragraph about how Bud and Todd are very, very similar, but very, very different, that's kind of like parallel, because Todd is a very good liar, and Bud is a very good liar. So try to see if you can use some of these icons in your writing. One other thing we need to be reminded of as we're working on the second paragraph is Maslow's hierarchy. Because Bud is not getting everything he needs. There's some things that Bud is missing. And in fact, there's some things that Todd is missing. And there's some things that Miss Amos is missing. If you would like to include these things in your second paragraph, that's some really deep, impressive thinking. Now let's move on to paragraph 3. When you move on to paragraph 3 and your final paragraph, you need to use a transition phrase again. Since this is your final paragraph, you can say something like in conclusion or finally or to close. Those are all good transition phrases. I need one sentence that predicts what might happen next in the story. And I need a second sentence about what the theme of the story might be. So just 2 sentences for the last paragraph. It could sound something like this. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you don't think the theme is love. Maybe your paragraph sounds like this. Now that you have 3 paragraphs done, you're ready for step 4, the editing. The first step in editing is you have to reread your rough draft to yourself. You should ask yourself, does it sound like you, but smarter? Does it make sense? The best way to do that is to read it out loud or imagine reading it out loud to a group of 8th graders. Maybe you're going to rearrange the sentences so they sound better. After you make it so it sounds good, now you're going to go back and you're going to check your grammar and your punctuation and your formatting. Remember, character names are capitalized, the titles of books are underlined, and you need a period at the end of every sentence. Maybe you could have another person read it and then give you some feedback on there. And then finally, last step, turn it in. And that's it today for our reading response of Bud Not Buddy. Check Google Classroom to figure out the due dates.